Welcome to the realm of heroes and monsters, Storytime, with your host, AP Fuchs. Stories of intrigue, stories of horror, stories of superheroics, stories of monsters. Get ready, the thrill ride begins.
Welcome to a new episode of the Realm of Heroes and Monsters Storytime with me, your host, AP Fuchs. And yes, today's story, as a disclaimer, is a little bit more adult-oriented, okay? So if you're below the radar, or below the age, that's what I meant to say, the bar, that's what I meant to say, the bar. If you're below that, maybe turn your ears off. I'm going to be a dad in that respect, okay? So don't get mad at me for that, just let me be a dad. But if you're of age, this one will be for you, but please also understand it's not like super explicit or anything like that either, but it is adult oriented. So you have that to look forward to, and now you're like, let me get to the story time. I want to hear this stuff because sex sells and all this stuff. No. You're gonna have to go through story before the story first. So let's do that, and then you could hear a story about, well, you know what. Okay. Welcome to Story Before the Story, where this week we're exploring the unknown. And by the unknown, I mean this, because remember, the whole season has been about how stories are part of our everyday life. Whether we like it or not, they're always there all the time, 24/7, 365. Our whole life is a story. We've already been over all this stuff. But here's one. So we talked about, in a previous episode, stories that occurred that when no one's around, right? And those are like the mystery stories, the unknown stories in that respect. But for this one, regarding the unknown, is this. It's you. Okay? Unless you're clairvoyant, you're like everybody else. You have 5 senses, right? You got your sight, you got your hearing, you got your taste, you got your touch, and your smell. That is your worldview. Everything that you know, everything that you've learned, everything that has occurred has all happened through those 5 senses in one capacity or another. Fine. But also understand, too, that based on what we know on stuff from the scientific community, the math community, the physics community, all those other communities out there, there's a lot of stuff that we just cannot perceive with our 5 senses. When you really think about it, we are interpreting the world through a very, very, very small peephole. 5 senses for all that's out there, that's a very minimal access point, which is why we have instruments and such to verify these other items that we cannot perceive with our own senses. But I can't help but wonder 2 things. One, it's just these folks who invent these machines, like, for example, when they first discovered the ability to view the ultraviolet spectrum, right? I can't help but wonder, like, were they standing around the machine and being like, this is it for sure? Or was there like their doubts saying like maybe it's just some weird lighting effect that's occurring because the machine's malfunctioning? Like, I don't know how they came to the conclusion this machine works, ergo we're going to rely on it. But anyway, that's one little side bit. But the other part is simply this: what stories are occurring that we cannot perceive with our 5 senses? What stories are happening on the microscopic scale that our eyeballs can't handle, right? What's happening on the macro scale that is actually too big that we can't take it in because it's so enormous, right? It's like looking up against, trying to take in a building, but you can't take in a building when your face is against the wall. It's the same idea, right? So I can't help but wonder what stories are occurring outside of our purview. And even not only that, stories that are occurring outside the purview of the instruments that make up for our lack. And that's where things get really interesting, because that's when you start hearing stories about, the supernatural, the paranormal. We could argue, even we can call it magic if you want. You can call miracles, things that happen completely out of the natural that we're aware of, right? These are all evidence of something occurring beyond our scope of understanding, beyond our scope of verifiable items, things that we could say this is for sure because, there's other items out there that we don't have explanations for. And those things are real and those things exist because, again, we have these events occurring. So we can't say, no, they don't exist, because these events do occur. So we have to acknowledge their occurrence as a starting point. So one, that implies story, right? Things are happening, which means stories are happening. 2, it would be a folly, I think, to delegate that kind of stuff into the realm of simply science and or math and or physics and or whatever that we don't understand. That's good to a point, right? Saying that, yeah, one day we're going to figure out how this works. But two, I think that that's a very prideful point to sit on. And the reason why it's a prideful point to sit on is because, yes, we have all these items that we could do to verify very different things and different phenomena and even different paranormal events and whatever else. But at the same time, I think we should all be in a position to acknowledge that there might be stuff that falls outside the realm of what we can understand. Even if our science and or math and or whatever progresses to an excessive degree in the future, there still will be things that we just will not be able to explain. And that's a good position to be in because that shows an open mind, right? If you have a closed off mind, that's a bad idea, because then you're missing out on all this other stuff that's occurring, and you're missing out again on these stories, going back to story. So I think we all need to take a posture of the willingness to learn and explore, which is important. And we should also take on the willingness to be proven wrong. And we should also be taking on the willingness to accept that, you know what, there might be stuff that cannot be explained through the scientific method, or cannot be explained through, a physics method or a math method, or pick whatever field method, right? It just can't be explained. End of story. That's where it goes. And if we approach things that way, if we approach life that way, that opens up doors to all sorts of wonderful things that we can learn. Not just on paper, stuff that we can concrete prove, but we can also learn about things we can't prove, or rather prove how it works, and to acknowledge that there's items that may exist outside of our boundaries, because there is boundaries, right? Outside the boundaries of time and space and all the different rules that govern thereof. There are things that can occur outside those rules. We know that from quantum physics, right? We know that if we start getting smaller and smaller and smaller, physics and math and all the rest of it break down, which is a really weird thing, but it's true. I mean, talk to anybody who's a physicist and they will tell you the same thing, that at some point the math and or numbers and or theories all start to fall apart. And so we have to kind of acknowledge, I think, that there's stuff that, we're not going to figure it out. And that's okay. It's okay to not have everything under your belt. And again, it opens the door to stories that occur outside our purview, that sometimes rear its head in our world through the supernatural or paranormal or whatever, which is why I never buy the argument that religion and science are mutually exclusive. No, they are complementary, because it gives you a full view. So anyway, think about that. The stories that we cannot perceive through the five senses, stuff that we need to use instruments for, and then stuff we just simply can't explain and will never will. Those are the unknown stories. How they work, why they're working, what kind of narrative are they running, what's the purpose? Is there an end game, or is it a fluke? Is it just an occurrence? Is it a purposeful occurrence? I don't know. So open mind. That's the point. Okay, now I know you want to hear that story. I know you do. Okay, here it comes. Dragonfly. Talia's skin was so smooth, so warm, so soft. Every touch Darin gave her was like touching glass. She rode him smooth and even, sending electric waves and pulses and pleasure throughout his body. Her moans told him she enjoyed this too. Soon, her breathing quickened and small gasps of delight escaped her lips. Darin groaned as he felt himself getting closer to climaxing. Talia picked up her speed, but still kept her pace strong and even. He pulled her in close and kissed her hard, then ran his lips across her cheek, down her neck, along her shoulders, and lingered on the blue and green dragonfly tattoo just above her triceps. Warm skin. Oh, she felt so good. So amazing. That skin, that smell, rich with strawberries and vanilla. Talia pulled him in hard and quickened her pace, her moans of ecstasy turning him on and making him climb that mountaintop faster. She bucked and let out a loud cry, her hips locking for a moment before releasing and continuing her movement. Darin drove into her, but still let her keep control. Soon, a shock wave of pleasure ignited between his legs, and he released within her pulse after pulse of ecstasy. Talia slowed her pace and eased him down off the ledge, running her hands across his chest as if to slow his speeding heart. "Oh my gosh," he whispered in her shoulder, then buried his face into her neck. He kissed her gently there before she guided his lips to hers. With a push of her fingers, she tilted his head back and kissed his neck as her hips still moved. Her tongue felt incredible along his neck as she licked and kissed him. He ran his hands up and down her smooth back before gripping her backside and slowing her movement down so she could barely move at all. After catching his breath, he whispered, "I love." Sharp pain cut deep into the side of his neck. He shouted. The pain dug deeper. The sharp sensation told him one thing. She was biting him. What had to be dagger-like teeth moved faster and faster as they tore through his flesh. Darin tried pushing her off, but she clamped onto him with an iron grip, her fingers suddenly feeling like claws taking full hold of his skin and muscle. Blood sprayed all over the side of his face and hers, turning his vision red and blurry. His neck, the pain, the scraping and tearing so she chewed through. "Stop," he wanted to say, but all that came out of his mouth were gushes of blood. He beat on her back with his fists, then was suddenly repelled with some kind of sticky mesh stuck out of her flesh. Through the red blur, wings. Enormous insectoid wings. Darin's head flopped to the side, and in a series of loud crunches, she gnawed through what could only be his vertebrae. Talia. Her skin. Oh, her skin. Smooth and sick with blood. His hands and arms went limp as she cut his spinal cord. In a way, the relaxation felt good. She felt so good. Talia. Thanks for sticking around to after the credits. And I just want to say I watched the new Superman movie trailer when it came out on Wednesday, and man, was it awesome. It looks to me like a cross, and it's like, I theorize that this would happen, is it was kind of like a cross between Man of Steel and the Christopher Reeve Superman movies. Kind of mushed them together in terms of like power display, but also the heart. At least based on the trailer, there seems to be a lot of heart in this movie, and I'm really excited for it. I think this time we're going to get more trailers and we're going to get more teasers, but I think they're actually going to get it really right again. They're going to have a Superman that really resonates with people. I mean, that's the magic of Christopher Reeve in what he did, is he not just did the role well, but he resonated with people. And that's one of the reasons why he's so beloved, is because he resonated with people through his actions as Superman. And I think in this upcoming movie, we're going to get that same kind of idealism, that same kind of warmth, that same kind of heart, where we'll feel something inside stir because of Superman. And I'm looking forward to that, and I really hope that that's how it all pans out. And I hope every single one of us who walks out of the theater that day will aspire to become something better than what we are. And to quote Christopher Reeve, when he was asked to distill Superman down into a very short phrase, he said one thing: Superman is a friend. And that's the challenge to us all. Let's be a friend.